right, here it is. Find your inner pirate. Big one today. Big podcast today. SEC West, best division in all of football. Let's come out. Let's swing our sword today, guys. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm just gonna sit back, preview these 7 schools and the best division in all of football. And you know what? This could be the final year of its existence. Actually, I'm 100% sure it is. With Oklahoma and Texas coming in next year, no more divisions. And that's a good thing for college football with all these lopsided divisions. A lot like the Big Ten East, the Big Ten West, or the SEC West has just dominated the SEC. Even though Georgia's won the last 2 national titles, it's really been pure domination out of this division. Alabama, LSU, Auburn. I mean, you name it, they've produced national championships out of this division. So one I've been looking forward to all preview season, and I saved it in the Big 12 for last because they're going to be my favorites. And I think everybody's out there like they're starting to see it. They're starting to see football's right around the corner. I've been waiting since I started this pod, since we started doing these previews about 6 weeks ago. I'm just excited to get football going. We got week 0 coming up Saturday. Navy, Notre Dame, and Ireland. You know I'm glued for that. You know that's appointment TV. I'm just dying for a real football game. I kind of watched a little preseason NFL, but man, we're right here. We're right here at the start of the season, guys. And it's going to be a ton of fun breaking down the SEC West. I mean, what's the worst program in this division? Mississippi State? And Mike Leach has had them swinging their sword for a long time now. I mean, they're always one of the 40 best teams in the country, at least. 15 to 40 is where I would put Mississippi State most years. That's what they're going to be ranked, and they're the worst program in here. And, Alabama's done some heavy lifting over the years, but LSU and Auburn, they won national titles, like I was saying, and this is just a division that's accounted for a shit ton of winning the last 20 years. And LSU and Bama are both top 5 and coming into the year, and should be another deep and talented division. The Big Ten East comes close, but this is the best division again in 2023. There's no doubt. In LSU, people forget LSU won this division last year. They put up a little bit of a fight versus Georgia, and I like their offense a lot. Jaden Daniels coming back, and Brian Kelly's an easy guy to make fun of, but he's got LSU set up nicely for 2023 and, the future. They keep getting some solid quarterback play. They got, like I said, Jalen Daniels. I kind of thought he was the next Vince Young when he first came in his freshman year at Arizona State. He upset Oregon when Oregon was trying to make a playoff late, and he's a guy that's always caught my eye. I don't know if he's quite Vince Young. I don't. He's had to transfer over from LSU, and he's really a one read and tuck it kind of guy. But there's no denying Jaden Daniels is a very good college quarterback. He led the Tigers top 10 offense last year, ranking 8th in F plus. And I'm sure Brian Kelly is not gonna want to run them as much as he did last year. When he led the team in rushing, but he's lethal as a runner. And look for running backs Josh Williams and Noah Cain to get some more touches than they did a year ago. Wide receiver, they got Malik Neighbors, and that's a guy I think that could emerge as a wide receiver 1 on this team. And they'll need him too if Kayshon Boutte go into the NFL and looking like a real late round sleeper. I forget who drafted him. But he fell all the way to like the 6th round or something. So yeah, and got to shout out tight end Mason Taylor. He's a stud in the making. He had a breakout season in his freshman year last year. I believe that's Jason Taylor's son. I think, who's the coach at Miami right now. So that's interesting. And offensive line, that's kind of the question mark on this offense. They struggled mightily in pass protection. And another reason why Daniels had to take off and run so much. They were young, and you expect some improvement up front, but they're going to need to if they really want to push for a college football playoff berth. The offensive line's got to be better than it was a season ago. Defense has got to be better than it was a season ago. They ranked 88 and F plus. That's just not going to cut it for an LSU defense that's called themselves DBU in the past. I mean, their offense could hang with everyone, including Georgia, but the defense just cannot get stops. And they really need the big boys, Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo, to anchor this D line. They didn't get enough pressure up front last year. It starts on the defensive line. And they brought in some transfers on the edge, losing some guys to the league like LSU always does. You got to bring in some talent. Maybe one of the most talented players in the country, number 4, Harold Perkins. That's a name to remember, and he's one of the best true freshmen I've seen in a long time. Last year when he went off, 8.5 sacks. He was constantly around the football. And the secondary needs to be better as well. They brought in some transfers, try and shore things up, but this defense has to play a lot better as a whole if they really want to do some big things. They bring in former 5-star cornerback Denver Harris from Texas A&M, and so that should improve their secondary. And I do expect improvement from last season with this defense. LSU's biggest rival, well, maybe not historically, but over the years, it's definitely Alabama. And Alabama, get this, plus 275 to win the SEC. Almost 3-1 odds. And that's got to be the highest odds to win the conference that Nick Saban's had in a long, long time. Is the grip on the college football world slipping away from Alabama and Nick Saban? They're still the second best program behind Georgia, but they aren't shoo-ins to win this league anymore and to go to the playoff like they have been. Are they going to be one of the 4 best teams every year? Almost certainly. But you got to do it on the field, Alabama. This team, they felt like a little bit like some of the OU teams over the years. They just had a star quarterback in Bryce Young and a lot of inconsistency around him. This was a team that was undisciplined a year ago. Especially that Texas game. They committed a lot of penalties, the most in the Nick Saban era. And he's been preaching discipline all off season. This will be irrelevant starting next year when the playoff expands to 12. But I'm just sick and tired of Saban saying, well, if you really were putting the 4 best in, Vegas had us power rated as one of the 4. Well, guess what? Vegas is wrong all the damn time, Nick Saban. You got upset by LSU. You got upset by Tennessee. You didn't deserve to be in the playoff, okay? So you got to shut the fuck up a little bit, even though you're the GOAT. Shut the fuck up, Nick Saban. Win. And so with the playoff going to 12, they'll be in it every year. So he can stop his whining and bitching. But at Alabama, there's been a lot of coaching turnover over the years. Bill O'Brien this year, Lane Kiffin in the past. Other assistants, they're constantly leaving to get promotions. Saban, he's the master at reloading. And it's a foolish errand to doubt this program, but like David Pollock said to him at halftime of the national championship, Georgia is the king of college football. And it's up to Nick Saban and Alabama to get their shit figured out if they want to regain that crown. Offensively, they're going to have to replace all-world Bryce Young, first overall pick. And we talked a bit about this when Porter and I were covering the Bama wideout John Mechie. It's been a few years since Bama had a loaded wide receiver room like they do with Devontae Smith, like they did with Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, when those guys were there. And I think Bryce Young's greatness kind of covered up a lot of issues on this offense. I expect to see some names emerge. Ja'Cory Brooks and Jermaine Burton. I want to highlight them, but it's just not the same elite room it was. And I think Ohio State really holds wide receiver U. I think they hold that crown now after what they've done with Marvin Harrison coming out again after this year. Nobody produces wide receivers like Brian Hartline at Ohio State. And, this offensive line was shockingly average. And Bryce Young, he just didn't have much time in the pocket last year. So we'll see if that gets cleaned up. The rushing attack also looked pretty average from Bama standards. And that's been a calling card of this Alabama program, is being able to physically dominate you up front. They got J.C. Latham. He's a star, but there's big questions along the rest of this offensive line. Running back Jace McClellan, he's solid, and true freshman Justice Haynes has a lot of people around Tuscaloosa excited, the 5-star. So we'll see how much run he can get this year. Defensively, it's not dissimilar to the offense. You got to replace your leader, Will Anderson. His absence is going to be felt. Look for Dallas Turner to really turn into one of the best edge rushers in the country by season's end. Guy I'm really high on. This defensive line should be really good. It's just a matter of how good. There's a ton of size up front, and that's going to overwhelm a lot of opposing offenses. The secondary was good last year, first in the SEC in passing efficiency, led by all-name team captain cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. I mean, he's the captain of the all-name team. There's no doubt when your name's Kool-Aid. You got Jordan Battles, safety I was really high on. They're going to have to replace him. But Kool-Aid should be the leader of this secondary, and Saban's specialty is defensive back. So I think, once again, they're going to be loaded with talent in this back end. And I like this that Alabama has some people naysaying them this year. That's attractive to me, and why I might pick them to win this division. You got Texas A&M. Here we go. 14-1 to win the conference. And I'm ready to go off a little bit right here on these Aggies. I hate Texas the most, but Texas A&M is a close second. I'm sorry. I can't wait for OU to get the chance to kick their ass every year like they used to. I mean, they need it. There's not a more delusional fan base or program in this country. You can go out, you can buy your recruiting class, you can buy your entire football program, and you can try and be built off the hype, but when you play against the real Texas A&M, when like OU used to every year, we kick the shit out of your phony program. Remember when Bob Stoops beat your dumbasses 77-0? You Colt ass Aggies. You guys are just a hype machine. You haven't won a damn thing my entire life. And they carry themselves like a blue blood. It's a cult. And Jimbo Fisher is a big dummy. Last year, his team quit. They took their ball home and they quit. They were upset by App State at home, and then they kind of just quit. And that's how they are when you build a phony program. They got a lot of young talent, just went ahead and immediately jumped in the transfer portal this offseason. That's what happens, you know. Kids are going to quit at the first chance if you let them. And Jimbo Fisher just hasn't built a good enough culture there. And you see the final years at Florida State, how that played out, how long it took them to get back to where they are now, kind of winning, getting back to their winning ways. Jimbo Fisher is a joke of a coach. I'm sorry, but Jameis Winston was a shining star, made us all think Fisher is an elite coach, got him that national title, and he's not terrible, but I expect the Aggies to improve this year, but he's massively overrated, and so is this entire football program. And I can't stand it when these talented kids choose A&M over OU in Texas. OU loses so many head-to-head battles against these guys just because they have the NIL operation and they can pay kids six digits, 100,000, because they just want to buy it. And I just Jimbo Fisher and A&M, they're kind of perfect for each other. Fisher wouldn't still be there if it wasn't for that mega contract, and A&M is trying to get out of it, but they can't. So they're just meant for each other, and hopefully they can have mediocre years like they did last year. But it's crazy. They're just like Texas. It doesn't matter what they do the season before. This is their season right now. This is talking season. Texas and Texas A&M. Texas is the minus favorite to win the Big 12. They're big time favorites to win that conference. People don't remember what they did last year. I'm not saying they can't improve, but these programs are built off hype, and when they face the real, they get reminded, and they get reminded during the real season when they actually play games on the field. Their offense underachieved a year ago. Could never find the right quarterback to get any rhythm. They bring back Bobby Petrino, longtime college football NFL coach. The guy just quit on the Atlanta Falcons. Just another sleazeball. Fit in really well in College Station. And I love the idea of two old head coaches trying to make the Aggies relevant again. I think it's going to work out great. It's either going to be terrible or this offense will be like a top 10 offense. They'll put some points up. Connor Wegman should be the guy. He got his feet wet towards the end of last season. And LSU transfer Max Johnson comes in. He's going to compete for the job. But I just don't see him supplanting Connor Wigman. He's the young hype guy, and folks are fired up about his potential. I do think the wide receiver duo of Anais Smith and Evan Stewart could form to be one of the best in the country. Ruben Owens is a big running back commit coming in and has a ton of hype, and he could be the replacement for Devon Achane, who was drafted this past spring. That'll be exciting if he does, because he's a guy that big 5-star kid, and we'll see how it pans out. The O line, they had a couple guys that snubbed OU, went to A&M like Bryce Foster. It could have been the next Creed Humphrey, but oh well. Ruben Fatheree at tackle, another guy OU was in on. So they got two guys that I'm high on, have some talent, but this was a mid O line last year. In the SEC, you're not going to get away with that. Defense was really good last year. I'll give them their flowers. They ranked 7th in F plus. They really tried to carry this A&M offense, and they did a pretty good job for the most part. Still couldn't get them to a bowl game. Let's remember that. This was the number one pass defense stat-wise in the SEC, but I really think it's because they were one of the worst run defenses in the country. They were super soft, like their entire program and the kids they recruit to come there. And it just shows me this team really did quit last year. When you run defense is all about discipline and effort, something A&M is allergic to. It's not like they've been bringing in these high 4 stars, high 5 stars. It's not like they don't have talent. A&M just does less with more than anybody in the country except Texas. Look for Shamar Turner to come into his own on that front seven. I mentioned Tony Grimes on last week's pod. He transferred in from UNC, and he figures to have a starting spot at cornerback. They also landed a transfer, from Boston College, Josh DeBerry, has some NFL potential. Edgerrin Cooper, a linebacker, another guy or A&M bought from OU, and he's just a name I would watch at linebacker this year. Much like the offense, the defense should be improved, but by how much? This is a team that I'm convinced will quit and take their ball home again once they lose some games. Others can hype Texas A&M up. I'll wait till they actually win something of importance. We got Ole Miss 40-1 next. The Lane Train. Lane Kiffin's got people excited, even though they got a weird quarterback situation this year. The Rebels are actually third in wins in the SEC over the last 3 years. And Kiffin's one of my favorite guys in football for his personality. But also, he's just a wizard dialing up plays as an offensive coordinator. He's the kind of coach that the Big 12 has had for the last 15 years. And it's no surprise he's putting up points and having success in the SEC. Oh, but the SEC is considered an offensive league now, Jay. It is. Well, what was the Big 12? What was the Big 12 all these years? Oh, the narrative was it's just bad defense. Whatever. Ole Miss really attacked the transfer portal aggressively this offseason, and they bring in defensive coordinator Pete Golding. He makes kind of a lateral move to go from Bama to be the defensive coordinator at Ole Miss, and Ole Miss needs a new voice on their defense. Offensively, we mentioned the quarterback room. It's a bit confusing because you bring in super senior from OSU, Spencer Sanders, and you already got last year's signal caller, Jackson Dart, who was pretty good last year. So it's just confusing. I don't know how it's going to play out. Maybe Kiffin is just going to play the hot hand, and that has to be a weird dynamic for those guys and the rest of the team because either way, they're going to be handing the ball off to their stud running back Quinshon Judkins. He tore it up last year, and the O-line's experience opened up a lot of holes for Judkins, but they were just so in pass protection. They're gonna have to get better in that. I'm sure that's been an emphasis all off season. This offense ranked 12th in F plus last year, and if the O-line takes a step forward, there's a lot of weirdness at quarterback. They should be a top 10 offense in 2023. They'll have to replace a couple NFL wide receivers, but Kiffin's system is plug and play, and they brought in some nice transfers in that wide receiver room. Defensively, we mentioned Pete Golding comes in. Like a lot of these SEC teams, this was the defense. This defense was weak last year. It was. I'm sorry. And they ranked 44th in F plus, which isn't terrible, but just still needs some work. Um, there aren't many big time names on this defense, but it feels like linebacker could be a strength, and that's huge to have the quarterback of the defense locked in. In college football, I think it's important to have really good linebacking play. So Lane Kiffin, much like Lincoln Riley, he's so confident in his play calling and his offensive brilliance. They, I just feel like sometimes they don't take defense as seriously as they should. This defense has a tendency to get run down due to being on the field so much of the game. The offense goes so fast at that tempo. This defense is asked to do a lot at Ole Miss. So it'll be on that defense. It'll be on the offensive line. See how far the Rebels can go this year. The Auburn Tigers, 40-1 to win the SEC. Can Hugh Freeze come in and save Auburn from the depths of irrelevance? That's what Auburn football's become over the years. An afterthought in this division. They're in search of their first 10-win season since 2017. For a proud fan base, that's just not gonna cut it. And when they went and got Hugh Freeze, despite some questionable off the field tactics, Freeze used Freeze used at his time at Ole Miss. He's a great X's and O's coach on the offensive side. So if he can beat Saban, that's all they really care about. They don't care about morality in this conference. Offensively, a lot of the offensive struggles have come at the feet of poor quarterback play. Really since Cam Newton's been there, and it looks as if Michigan State transfer Peyton Thorne and Robbie Ashford are going to battle it out. And I'll be honest, I don't like either of those guys. I do like the hire of Philip Montgomery at offensive coordinator, though, and this offense should be better than 40th in its F plus that it ranked last year. New look wide receiver room with a lot of transfers coming in. That should fit the scheme well. Offensive line did a good job of run blocking last year, but was that them performing well, or was it the stud running back Tank Bigsby just being a beast? One of my favorite, probably my favorite running back to watch over the year, Tank Bigsby. He's a pro now. I don't remember where he got drafted. But anyways, like almost every team, but especially in the SEC, this offense is going to go as far as the offensive line will take them. Uh, Defense, an SEC school hiring a Big 12 defensive coordinator? Huh. Ron Roberts comes over from Baylor, and he's going to try to bring that Auburn uh, defense. He's going to try and do what Dave Aranda's done, build an efficient defense. Justin Rogers, big body, they're hoping is going to be a plug and play at defensive tackle, um, along with a couple other transfers. Linebacking play should be solid. Cam Riley back, and they bring in Ole Miss transfer Austin Keys to bring some added depth. Secondary remains pretty much intact from last year, and it was a solid secondary. But Freeze and Roberts, they got to be hoping for more takeaways in 2023. The schedule is pretty hard, and I'm a believer in Hugh Freeze though, and I do think they find a way to go over 6.5 wins, their win total. So that's interesting. Couple more teams here. Arkansas, 80-1 to win this league this year. And Sam Pittman's done a great job in his first 2 seasons at Arkansas. He really has, getting them back to respectability. He and Brett Bielema at Illinois, they're two of my favorite coaches, and they're two recent hires on the offensive line coaches at heart, and they've just come out and their teams play confident, physical, smash mouth football, and you got to love that in 2023. They both bring a gritty attitude, and that trickles down to the entire roster. Arkansas, they play close games. They're far from a pushover in this conference. Offensively, they're going to have to replace Kendall Briles. He took the offensive coordinator job at TCU. New OC Dan Enos comes over from Maryland, and he's fortunate to have an experienced backfield, quarterback KJ Jefferson and running back Raheem Sanders in his first season. This offense, they ran that ball. They let that bone roll, and they're going to hope to have some of that same explosive run game this year with the new coordinator coming in. Hopefully they don't lose that. Up front, Sam Pittman brought in Joshua Brown from Florida, and he figures to start at one of the tackle spots. So the offensive line, they're going to have a good unit up there, Sam Pittman. Defensively, this was probably the worst defense in the SEC last year. They ranked 58th in F plus, but they gave up most of the yards in the SEC, and allowed over 30 points a game. So They lost two of their top playmakers and linebacker Bumper Pool and Drew Sanders. That'll be a blow to replace them. And the defensive line's got some big question marks. Is the light going to come on for some of these young guys? Dwight McLaughlin is a player I really like in the secondary, but this is a group that just doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. That's going to be better in 2023. This is probably a 6 or 7 win team, but the schedule sets up nicely for Arkansas. They should reach 8 wins, and maybe they pull an upset or two if that offense doesn't take a step back with Riles leaving. So that's kind of where I'm at with Arkansas. All right, last but not least, guys, Mississippi State. Um, and I didn't prepare any notes. All that needs to be said about Mississippi State is, we know they lost Mike Leach to the unfortunate um, medical issue. Believed it was a heart attack of some sort. This happened before their bowl game last year. And guys, this is Find Your Inner Pirate. Mike Leach is the godfather of this podcast. And Mississippi State, if there's one thing I know about them this upcoming year, they're going to play inspired. Zach Arnett, the head coach now, is going to have that defense playing inspired. They're going to play for Leach this year. And I'm going to be podcasting for Leach this year. Everything I do goes to God, but it also goes to Mike Leach. He's going to help us all find our inner pirates together. And who knows, maybe Mississippi State has a magical year this year. I don't know a whole lot. They're in they're in last in the odds to win this division, but maybe Mike Leach can get on a good page with the football gods. The football gods never really shine that brightly on Mike Leach. He never did win a conference at Tech, Washington State, or Mississippi State, but by God, did he swing his damn sword. And nobody did it more than Mike Leach. I just can't believe he's gone. It's going to be a sad first season without him. No crazy press conference clips calling out his players fat girlfriends. I mean, just the rants he would go on. It's going to be truly missed in college football, and I hope Mississippi State plays inspired for him this year. And that's something that I think would warm all of our hearts to see Mike Leach and Mississippi State, to see him play for the guy. So that's it. That's the SEC West, guys. That was a ton of fun to break down. We're going to do the SEC East early next week. And then I'm going to have, hopefully, my guy, the Latvian missile, Josh Kopelman, on to do a Big 12 preview with me for next Friday's pod. So be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for week 0, like I mentioned. We got some games. USC's playing. And guys, we're here. We're getting close. Can you feel it? Can you feel it, baby? I'm getting pumped. But all right, that's going to be it for Find Your Inner Pirate today. Peace out.